Welcome back to the Pape ride out of Richardson, Texas. The most polarizing, over-the-top ride in the Dallas area. No, I stole that from the ticket, of course, the hard line. But I think it's true. The Pop ride is the most polarizing, over-the-top ride in the Dallas area. Why that is, I'm not exactly sure. But I have an idea. And I think it's because a lot of people have done this ride and have had a bad experience. And many of those people did this ride quite a long time ago when they had that bad experience. Well before I started doing videos of this ride, before anyone was doing videos of this ride. Because of a couple people I can think of just off the top of my head that I know that have personally told me that this is one of the most sketchy rides in the entire Dallas area. They have not been on this ride as far as I know in the past 3 years. So, was this ride sketchier 3 years ago? I don't know because I wasn't on the ride 3 years ago. So I suppose maybe it was. If they said it was sketchy, it probably was sketchy. They're good riders. So, is the ride currently sketchy? That's a good question. I guess it's a matter of opinion and your threshold for thinking something is dangerous. Is this your standard pace line, two across, nobody moves up kind of ride? No. Is this a ride that is a little bit more of a hammerfest race-like ride? Yes. Have there been a lot of crashes on this ride? For a long time, I've been saying no, there have not been a lot of crashes on this ride. But then we have 2 crashes in about a month. And, someone once told me on the Pop ride, it's safe when you know the wheels, and you do it smart. And that goes for any kind of group ride. You know the wheels. If you don't know the wheel, be careful. And that goes for any, like a race, anything. Be careful if you don't know the wheel in front of you. Of course, someone 5 wheels in front of you. Certainly been times I've been on this ride that I've just been behind someone and I said, screw it, I'm not going to be behind this person, and I go around them and I go past them and I'm at the front and maybe I don't ever see them again. I think it's safe to say that the people who do this ride a lot for the most part are the safer ones. And of course, people that don't do the ride very often don't know where all the potholes and cracks are. Even if people are pointing them out, they're less likely to see them and recognize them, and they're more likely to crash. So I think that goes for the South ride too, because people that do that ride all the time know where the potholes and uneven pavement and gaping cracks in the road are. Those road conditions are much sketchier down there. We have a few cracks and potholes on this ride, but not nearly the mess that's on the South ride. So, yeah, this ride tends to have a reputation among some cyclists, and I don't think it's personally deserved. But then again, maybe I'm doing a crazy ride and I just don't know it. Don't realize it. I'm like the crab in the water. The water's gotten too hot and I don't even know the water's hot. I think I'm in tepid water. So here we are going up Jupiter Road, headed north. If you continue on this road, you'll eventually get to McKinney and you'll eventually get up to the Cadence Cycling. So you have to go another, 10 miles from here or so, going north to McKinney. But anyway, why are we talking about McKinney when we can be talking about the ride at hand? And it was nice to have some Windsor boys on the ride. Windsor, the blue kit with the W right in front of me. And golly gee, does that look like a new bike? I think it is. What a nice new Trek to join us in the peloton today. So the Windsor boys, they don't mess around with their bikes. They got nice bikes. They got color matched bikes, so I assume this means they're not changing the color of their kit next year. We're going to be sticking with the black and blue because they like other teams to be black and blue after they're done beating up on them. So was this going to be a street fight ride today? I put up this video recently of Pack versus Dallas Bike Works street fight, and I noticed that it was getting a lot of hits. So I turned to the Armenian. I asked him what was going on. Armenian's my YouTube expert. And the Armenian said it's because of your title. It's because of your title that it has gotten those hits, and so people are looking for actual street fights and they're clicking on your video. So that's not actually a good thing. I'm not trying to attract the kind of people who are hitting the internet for street fights. So I changed the title to Cycling Street Fight. But let me define what a street fight is. So I would define a street fight as when a racing team goes to a group ride, and it has to be kind of a hammerfest group ride. It can't be just a slow, recreational, social pace group ride. It needs to be a hammerfest or a race group ride. And they don't normally go to it. They go to it in numbers, and they are throwing down in that ride, and they are challenging the riders that normally do that ride. And if there's, in particular, if there's another team where it's sort of like their ride. So it would, it's safe to say, I think, that my team, PACC, Plano Athletic Cycling Club, has the greatest numbers on this particular ride. So if you had to choose one particular team that was, kind of most dominant on this ride, I'm not trying to brag. I'm not trying to create controversy. Dear Matrix friends, I'm not trying to create any controversy here. You guys have all the rides going out of your shop. You've been dominating the scene for a long time. But in terms of this ride, some people will say we're the most present team. So if somebody comes to quote unquote PAX ride, and they don't normally do it, and they're throwing down, that's a street fight. That's a cycling street fight. And I think that's a lot of fun, for anytime you see a group of guys from another team that show up on the ride you normally do, and they're talented, they're fast, and they're ready to rumble, that adds to the spice. That makes it fun. And I have to say it wasn't quite a street fight today. The ride was a little bit pedestrian, I would say, today. Now, did I just ruin the video? Did I just ruin your video because I said the pop ride was pedestrian today? What I mean was, the wind wasn't too bad. People weren't caught out, I think, too much. I think almost everyone finished with the group. There weren't these huge surges and, everyone getting split off and stuff like that. So I think it was relatively tame today, and that's fine. It's starting to be the heat of the summer. The race scene has definitely cooled off in the Dallas area, as it does, it seems, every year. You get into the middle of the summer when it's hot. Essentially, the only races going on are the weeknight crits, and you start to get less participation in those crits in terms of overall numbers. And it's just sort of slowed down. So maybe guys aren't hitting the trainer as much, or they haven't been hitting the trainer for a while, and they're not necessarily at their peak form, nor do they care to be at their peak form, and they're just out kind of riding for a good time. And so you might get some guys that don't normally do the group ride. Suddenly they're on, they're at the group rides, or they might normally be doing the crits on a Tuesday night, but maybe they're at the group ride. So this gets to the question, you might say, of what is the state of the racing scene in general in the United States. We know it's down. We know that total number of racers that are registered with USA Cycling are down. We know that racer days, the number of days total that racers are doing, it's down. And the question is why? I think there's a lot of answers to that, and it's not necessarily just one thing, nor is it an easy answer. But when I look at this ride, there are plenty of guys on this ride that could race, that don't. They're not on a cycling team, or, they're not interested in being on a team. There are guys that race that aren't on a team. But some guys just aren't interested in racing. And I would say definitely, you get a lot more people on a group ride than you get at a race. And when I was a younger cyclist, I mean less experienced, the idea of doing a rally was kind of exciting. So they have all these charitable rallies in the area in Texas, in the Dallas area. Usually a lot of them are out of town a little bit, so you get on these country roads and You pay something like somewhere between $25 and $40 to register for the ride, and you show up and you get a packet and you get some coupons and you get a t-shirt or a water bottle, and the money goes to some charitable cause typically, and you're out there with anything anywhere, from 500 people to maybe over 10,000 people at Hotter Than Hell up in Wichita Falls. So especially when there's a lot of numbers, it's a spectacle. When it's something that's really difficult, that also makes it a bit of a challenge and a spectacle. So, you get to these guys that are like Cat 3s and stuff. Riding 100 miles is not particularly a spectacle, or riding a metric century is not particularly a spectacle, or some people in the past, or currently even, will treat those rallies as races or unofficial races. So you'll have like a lead pack. In particular, Goat Neck has a history of being kind of an unofficial race. I did that ride. When was that? Was it 2 years ago or 3 years ago? Let's see. It was, I think, 3 years ago. 3 years ago. And um, in a way, it was kind of like my first race, even though it wasn't a race. I was with the lead pack, and it was a large lead pack. And there was no space. It was like being in, like, you're watching the Tour de France, and you see a pack of like 100 riders all bunched up together. It was like that. There was no place to go. You're in the middle, and the draft was amazing because it's five deep, seven across, and seven across and 40 up and down the road. And I remember it started to get hard. And here's the thing that's still funny to me. You'd have guys tossing bottles into the grass, the side of the highway, the side of the road. They just finish a bottle, just toss it, and I'm like, is this the kind of ride that you toss bottles? Now, I'm about the cheapest person alive, and if a bottle costs $5, I am not tossing it. I don't care. If a bottle costs $3, I am not tossing it. My bottles cost more than $10. Definitely not tossing my bottles. Not to mention it's litter or whatever. But I was just kind of amazed. Here we are on this rally ride, not a race. Guys are tossing bottles like they're shedding weight. And anyway, a bottle ended up being the culprit, the thing that sort of ended my race per se, in that people were dropping bottles in the middle of this huge pack, and then somebody went down because of a dropped bottle. Happened to be a teammate at the time. Um, Come to think of it, he's crashed a few times, which goes with my theory that the same people crash over and over. So, I don't know why that is. Why do the same people crash over and over? 80% of crashes are 20% of the people commit 80% of the crashes. Now, not that that was his fault, but then again, why do bad things keep happening to the same people? Anyway, so I ended up with something like a 23 mile an hour average on that ride, or 22 for me at that time before racing anything. That was pretty amazing for me for a metric century, especially a hilly one like that. And that was when I'd just gotten back from a cycling kind of vacation in Colorado. I'd put in huge, at least for me, huge amount of TSS stress and so forth. So that was kind of where I made a big jump in fitness. That might have been the largest jump in fitness I've experienced since I returned to cycling. So, yeah. Why do people do these rallies? Why do they do these group rides? Why do they race? Why do they not race? Why aren't more of these people that are in this group that could race racing? Even some of these people are on a nominally a race team or a hybrid race club team, recreational team. Why aren't they racing? I've got guys on our race team that don't race. They could race, but they don't want to. So, for reasons that are not always apparent, there could be financial reasons, there could be pride reasons, anxiety may play a role, fear of crashing, whatever. The thing that I like about racing is the strategy. Not that I'm all that good at it, but I like the teamwork part of racing. So I can't imagine racing year after year and not being on a team. That's just me. I think the team element adds to the satisfaction of what you're doing. And I've played team sports all my life. I used to be good at track when I was a kid, but that's not a team sport, and frankly, I didn't enjoy it. not that I loved basketball. That was my one of my favorite sports. I love the team element. I'm okay not being the best basketball player on a team. I rarely ever was. But I liked being a contributor. I liked playing defense. I liked hustling. I liked getting rebounds. I liked making good passes to the best shooter on my team. All that stuff. And the same thing applies to cycling. If you can be a contributing member of a team in an effort, you can feel good about your effort. There's more than one way to win when you're on a team, and that way is that you contributed to the success of the team. I think that's what makes it fun. Oh, my teammate's doing this, okay, this is what he's probably thinking, this is my response. Don't necessarily even need to talk about it. These guys on Windsor, they do a great job in terms of their teamwork. They will sacrifice for each other. They are, frankly, one of the best examples of teams in the area that work well together, and they're smart in their racing. So uh, you should be, if you're going to be on a team, ideally you're on a team where you're willing and to sacrifice for the people on your team, which means you like them and you will feel good about their success. Now, it's really hard to work for somebody whom you don't like and for whom you do not support their success, or you feel like you never get any credit for their success if they have success. In other words, they don't appreciate anything that is done for them. That's what doesn't help a team cohere. What helps a team cohere is the idea that I will sacrifice for you, you will sacrifice for me if the situation presents itself. And frankly, as it is on teams, typically there is somebody that's going to potentially do a little bit better than other people. So, for example, a really strong breakaway specialist for their category will probably do better than someone that doesn't have that ability. A really good sprinter that can put in huge efforts from the pack and races smart and gets to the right position will have results that not everyone else will. And what does it mean to be pack fodder? Well, if all you do is sit in the pack and you don't enjoy that, and you never animate anything or you never work for anyone, yeah, that could suck. I remember talking to a guy who told me he quit racing because he was tired of putting down his money and just being pack fodder. Now, in his case, he may have been successful when he was younger in terms of placement, but what is the definition of success? We've got guys racing in our area that are over 60 years old, and they're not, in some cases, most of the time, not on the podium, but that's not why they're doing it. They're not doing it to win per se. They don't go into each race thinking, yeah, I'm going to win this. They're going into it because they enjoy it. They like the competition. They like the camaraderie. They like the teamwork aspect of it. They just like doing it. So, um, getting to the point of this sort of Zen attitude towards not being so result oriented, where everything is about you. Everything is about you being the alpha. Everything's about you establishing yourself, to just being the best you can be, the best you want to be. You could probably be better than you are. You could probably train smarter. You could probably rest better. You could probably train harder. You could probably be doing more intervals at the right times. You could be increasing your stress in terms of putting more hours in. You could be doing very, low power efforts to work on this polarized model. We all have our limitations on how much we can do and how much we're willing to do, and that determines to some extent how successful we are in terms of our fitness level, and that fitness level plays a big role in terms of success. There's a guy that I would say that's been a bit of a mentor to me. He's not a local guy, but he's also a guy that does cycling videos, and his videos are really great. They're sort of the first racing videos that I watched, and they predated most of the videos that you see now. That's Sprinter Della Casa, and I think I'm getting that right. If you look up his channel, he's got some really great videos about techniques and ways of thinking during racing. And he's a sprinter. So it's from mainly a sprinter's perspective, but you can learn from it in other ways. And the thing that's interesting about him is that he has a terrible threshold, on my mind. Well, he would even say, he's even said, he does not have a good threshold. He has done, like he can have a threshold of 200 watts and win races. Now he's not winning at the typically at the Cat 1, Cat 2. I think he was a Cat 2 or maybe he was a Cat 3. So he's mainly doing your B type, I think, races. And he's smart. He can draft well. He doesn't need a high FTP to do well. He races smart. And he's got a huge engine, a huge anaerobic engine that he can unleash in the right moment to win or place or do well or make a move for his team or bridge something or whatever. You don't have to, you can have a strength where you're not the strongest all around cyclist. So check out his videos. I've really enjoyed them, and he's great. So here we are approaching Parker Road, the fabled, the feared, the dangerous Parker Road, home of the gutter test, with the wide open spaces where wind just sweeps from the north and sweeps from the south, punishing riders as they move through these crosswinds. When you're watching the Tour de France, those are usually the most interesting stages where everything's boring. They make this small turn, and suddenly the race rips apart. And races have been won or lost based on the wind, and plenty of hopes have died on Parker Road with these crosswinds. So we'll take a look here at positioning and sheltering and how you use your energy in such a situation to either get a workout or to stay glued to the group and not get dropped and so forth. So you might take a look at the power numbers in terms of watts based on what position I am in. In this particular part of video, the wind is sweeping from the right to the left. So looking towards the right, that is south. Looking towards the left, that is north. The wind is coming from the south. And a channel viewer asked the question of why do we ride so far on the left side of the lane? Well, people have been trained from as kids that you're supposed to hug the right side of the lane. It's a lot more complicated than that in terms of the laws and staying safe on the road. We take up the whole lane. And the position in the lane is related to the wind. So it's not so important if you have a headwind, a direct headwind, or a very direct tailwind, but position is very important when you have a crosswind or a cross tail or a cross headwind. So in this particular case, with the wind coming from the right, the sheltered position is going to be towards the left. So if you want to help the group go fast and provide as many sheltered spots as possible, the person in the front should ride all the way to the right, closest to the wind. And then it sort of fans out in a diagonal fashion towards the left side such that riders in the back are going to be all the way to the left. Now, there's something being called guttered. Being guttered is when you are directly in the line of cyclists. You are moved all the way over as far away from the wind as possible, but you're really not getting any shelter. And so that's, for example, riding all the way here closest to the lane divider, that you're not getting sheltered. Now, in this case, I am getting sheltered because this RBM rider, Matrix rider on my right, he is providing some shelter because he's further to the right. If he wasn't there, I would essentially be guttered and getting very little draft at all, riding behind Francois right in front of me. So again, I'm in a very sheltered position. If you look at my watts, 180 watts, going 24 miles an hour. We're not going all that fast. Sometimes we hit this, high 20s, 30 miles an hour and so forth. We'll ramp it up here as the grade is slightly downhill. And here I'm just freewheeling. Guys in front of me are spinning, but I'm in a very sheltered position. The not too distant future, I'll be moving over to the right, and we'll see if my watts increase as we do so. Here's these open farm fields, and okay, so here was a moment where the guy on my right was especially unsheltered, and instead of moving up, I knew he wanted to move over, so I gave him a little space that he could, but I was in a guttered position. Everyone behind me would be in a guttered position. There's no shelter. So I moved over to the right to form another echelon, hoping that the guys behind me would latch on and that we could get out of the guttered position and move up. And so that's what we're doing here. In this case, Raul, he had a little bit of the same idea. He's over far to the right, meaning that he is in the least sheltered position, and I'm on his wheel in a sheltered position or somewhat sheltered position. So a little bit to the left and behind him. Of course, I'd be if I wanted to be more sheltered, I'd be riding closer to him, maybe even wheels overlap. But remember what I told you last video: don't overlap wheels. If you overlap wheels, you're at high risk for crashing. And so my watts, I guess, gosh, I didn't look at my watts during that moment. But if you looked, certainly my watts would have been higher, especially since we were accelerating relative to the pace of the rest of the group as we were moving up, and Raul was essentially pulling us up. So now I'm in a totally unsheltered position in the crosswind, and so watts are a little bit higher, 280 watts or so. And if over 300 watts for a moment there, if we looked at, and it could be that I'm doing 300 watts, but the guy 2 bikes over to the left of me is not even pedaling. Here we are passing a couple of riders, and again, look, I'm at 400 watts. Maybe some acceleration at the front here at this point too. And so sometimes riders take a little bit of a shortcut and for whatever reason and catch back on. So that's another strategy you may use on your group ride. If something happens, you get a mechanical, you can know where the shortcuts are and you get back onto the group. Or if you know you're dropped at a particular point every time, get back on the group. Here we are making our right-hand turn on Murphy Road. And we're going directly into a headwind, but it's a little bit of a cross headwind. So in this case, the wind is, of course, coming at us, but it's coming a little bit from the left. So the riders in the front ideally should be all the way to the left, and the riders in the back are more on the right side of the road because that's the more sheltered position. And depending on how acute the angle is of the cross headwind determines what angle the echelon has. So if it was completely a pure headwind, you would be straight, it'd be a straight line. But if it's a little bit of a cross headwind, you're going to get a little bit of a diagonal. And of course, if it's a full-on crosswind, it's much more advantageous to be for the echelons, the front and the back to be as close together as possible to get more of that shelter from the side there. So here I am. I see that Lynn is moving up. I really wasn't doing much for a while now, and I want to get a little bit of work in by getting to the front and having more opportunities to join the pace line and get on the front and do a little bit of work. So here's my ticket. I've punched it. I'm saying, Lynn, take me. Take me to the front. Let me get there with as little work as possible. Does this make sense? I make Lynn do all the work, but I'm going to the front so I can do work. I guess, you'd be more rested at the front if you're doing less work to get up there. Look at that beautiful blue bike. Nice wheels too, with the matching blue Envy wheels. This is a ride that also has women, so that's really awesome. That it's awesome to have both men and women on this ride. So Lynn is pumping and going, and we have gapped the guys in the front. Not particularly on purpose, but it's okay on this ride to accelerate a little bit. Lynn's done a lot of work. He just pulled me all the way up to the front. Now I'm on the front and I will take a pull. I move over, trying not to gap Lynn. In other words, you accelerate or you're going faster, but you slow down a little bit as you get to the front to make sure that gap didn't open. A little bit of a gap did open there. Robert coming through, and I have to accelerate just a little bit to get on his wheel. Of course, it's not going to be perfect in terms of you have to adjust a little bit. Sometimes you're going to have to slow a little bit by not particularly braking, but by not pedaling, getting into the wind a little bit. That slows you down. and other times you're going to have to accelerate to get right on the wheel. And sometimes that can be a little bit painful after you have taken a pull or a long pull. So you can see Robert working hard. He flicks his elbow. It's time for me to go through, and I'm a little bit tired since I just did a pull, but it wasn't a very long pull. And now I'll go again. So it's time for a workout. And let's see, I'm doing just over 400 watts here. My MPA is falling because I am over threshold. So the more time here I spend over threshold, the higher the watts are above threshold, the faster my MPA will fall. And I'm over to the left trying to provide as much shelter as possible. The light turns red and guys, they're like, we're not gonna like just keep pedaling because the light is red, but I went a little bit harder than everyone else did with the red light. And boy, wouldn't this be a good time to have a breakaway if the light turned green right as I got to it? Oh, what do you know? The light turned green, but I'm a little bit tired. Well, more than a little bit tired, so I'm like, screw it. Let the guys catch back up to me, and I'll just climb on. I don't feel like taking a huge drag all the way up to FM 544 up here. So this is usually a very fast part of the ride, even with this headwind. Well, it doesn't really matter if there's a tailwind or a headwind. If there's a tailwind, it's definitely going to be faster. But when I say fast, I mean hard effort, putting in a lot of power. And so there the guys go. Uh, this is the kind of ride where you can put in a big effort, and almost no matter what, guys will catch you and they will just boom right past you. So we're going to see a little bit of teamwork happen here in just a minute. So I'm a little bit tired. I'm looking for a gap to try to get in the group. I'm looking like I might have to get on the very end and back of the group. But who should come to save me but my club president, the race team president, Lynn Waters, goes over to the right and says, okay, Arthur was off the front. That's me. Get some shelter, provide some shelter, give me a little rest, and we can reintegrate ourselves in the group. So that's something you can do to help a teammate out, whether it's a race situation or a group ride situation. You support your teammates. It's a courtesy. You feel good about both doing it and receiving it, and it helps you feel like you're a valued member of the team. And that's what you do, So I should do that for other people. Do I do it for other people? I don't know. I guess other people have to answer that question. If I have ever helped you on a group ride, post a comment. Watch, it'll be just completely empty, no comments. But anyway, that's just a little thing. Uh, you wear your flag, you have your laundry, your colors, you wave your flag, you stick to your tribe, you support your alphas. We were joking around our team about who are the surfers, the serfs. I guess I said that the last video, that it's sort of like the king, the lords, and the serfs. Did I say that? I don't remember. Definitely talking about this notion that an average group ride is nothing more than a contest to see who is the alpha in terms of strength and brute force and everything else like that. So this is a fast part of the ride. Some guys like to sprint to what is almost always a stoplight, or rather a red light here at FM 544. Really like this road because it is smooth, it is fast, it doesn't have cracks, it doesn't have potholes, and you don't have to stop very much. Usually you'll hit a lot of these lights green, and that's what makes Murphy fun, even though it's kind of a fast road with fast traffic, not all that much traffic. The guys used to do this road called Dublin, and I've posted up videos there before of Dublin and famous Dublin Sprint. It's a 2-lane road, and I think it's much more dangerous than this road. Really would hate to do a sprint with the Pop A on Dublin Road. I think that would be nuts. I wouldn't do it. I wouldn't participate in it. It would be too dangerous. It's fine to do a sprint with just a few people, but I wouldn't want to do it with 50 guys or 60 guys or whatever like that. So much prefer Murphy Road to Dublin Road for the pop ride, and it's been Murphy Road for a long time, I think, like 3 years or something like that. So here we are stopping at FM 544 in Murphy, Texas, a suburb of Dallas, and Home of reasonably priced homes. That's not a very good slogan. Home of homes? Home of reasonably priced homes? No, I shouldn't be working as an ad executive, that's for sure. This ride brought to you by the City of Murphy Chamber of Commerce. Certainly, uh, they are not sponsoring this podcast, this video, this commentary on Group Ride. No, they are not sponsoring this. I don't know. What do I think when I think of Murphy, Texas? I think of no trees. I think of zero lot lines. I think of cookie cutter houses. Is that fair? Is that bad? One thing that's great about Texas is the reasonably priced homes compared to a lot of other places in the country. So I'm a Texan. I'm proud of Texas. I wear that badge even more proudly than my race team's colors. Is that even possible? Yes, it is. So, uh, yeah, Texas. So I'm glad that we have a scene like this where we have a pop ride and guys who are into riding, and we get to do this ride all year long. We don't stop riding our bikes just because it's winter time or it's 30 degrees. Of course, we do stop riding our bikes when there's ice on the ground, and if heaven forbid there was snow. It does snow from time to time, every couple 3 years or something like that. We do get ice storms from time to time. We get the spring hail from time to time, but we can usually ride all through the year, and that's a lot of fun. I used to be one of those guys that packed up his crap in the fall and didn't touch the bike except for maybe a couple of trainer rides on the dumb trainer, watching TV. I'm talking more than 12 years ago, 15 years ago. Just couldn't get into. I didn't ride during the winter. I just played basketball, and big difference between not riding in the winter and riding all through the winter, including on the trainer, but also outside in group rides when the weather cooperates. So big difference in terms of training, being sharp at the beginning of the race season, and for us, I think the race season starts like end of January, February. Now, it didn't for me because I didn't participate in those races, but guys, there is no break. There is no break in training if you're serious about racing. Maybe you would take a break in September, late September, early October. That would be the time to, if you wanted to shut it down for a week or two. But boy, the people that are really into it, they are ready to go and they are training hard. And some of the fastest, most furious pop rides have been in the winter when we attract those Cat 2 racers, guys of that ilk. We don't typically have many Cat 2 or Cat 1 guys that do the pop ride, and I think that's the case for most group rides, because a lot of those guys don't do group rides, or if they do a group ride, it might be the premier, high caliber, South ride once a week or something like that they do as kind of a race ride where they get to test their legs against each other. But if you go on Strava and you're following, say, your local Cat 1, first off, a lot of them won't be on Strava at all, or they're on Strava and they don't post their rides or their workouts. But you'll note that they don't do nearly the number of group rides that us schlubs love doing. We love our group rides. We love just having fun and not worrying about training and not doing coaches workouts all through the year or whatever. Just get out with your buddies and ride in the good weather. Good weather includes really hot weather. It's fun to be in the hot. Look at that beautiful sunset. Look at the beautiful clouds. Probably didn't appreciate a bit of it at the moment because I was looking ahead and seeing what was going on. And what do you know? My good friend Lynn, doing the hard work for me yet again. Doing the work to, put this together and giving me some shelter here. And we've been able to collaborate in races a little bit this season when I've done a few crits. The one that I won, the B race that I won, Lynn put in an early attack on the last lap that forced a chase and strung the group out and made it so that I wasn't swarmed and I was in great position, and we made the left-hand turn into the tailwind, I was able to get a pretty nice gap, and that's the one that I won. So Lynn played a role in that. So you know each other's strengths and weaknesses. You work together. You collaborate. You've got that hive mind where you're all worker bees that know what the purpose of the hive is. That's fun. That's what racing is. So let's see if I give Lynn any help here. Was he getting on my wheel? I wanted to go around, but then, I kind of wanted to be on Clint's wheel here too, so I guess I ended up gapping things up a little bit there. But getting on Clint here, and we're moving up the hill, but they'll soon be on. We'll hit some red lights here, I think, and everything will be annealed back together. I was watching NorCal Cycling's one of his videos recently, and they called, well, his guest columnist, not columnist, uh, commentator, describes when you go to the front of a group, there's a breakaway off the front, there's a gap, and you are in the field, you move to the front of the field, but you do not gap the field. You slowly accelerate, allowing everyone to stay on your wheel, but you are closing the gap to the breakaway. He called that welding. I like that. Welding. You're bringing like two pieces of metal together and you're going to get them stuck back together. You're working. You are like, you've got that welding mask on. You are firing up the torch. There's sparks flying everywhere. Your legs are sparking. You are welding the group back together. And of course, there are strategic reasons to do that. Sometimes you do not want to just gap yourself off and spend all your energy um, uh, creating a gap between yourself and trying to bridge to the group, but rather it's in your team's interest for you to do the work to bring the entire group back together. And that's usually in the context of maybe someone else in your team's going to attack for a breakaway right before the catch, or you have some kind of sprint ambitions for the team and you want to bring everything back together, but you yourself would not find utility in being off the front. Usually I would argue that you should use your energy. I would always argue this. You should use your energy in a way that benefits the team. And if that means benefiting you, you're part of the team. And so don't waste your energy doing things that do not benefit the team. Don't just sit on the front, for no reason. Have a reason for what you do. Always have a reason for why you're expending your energy. It's like having cash in the pocket. Don't just throw your cash and throw it up in the air and make it rain. Use your cash wisely, spend it for things that are valuable. So things that are valuable might include getting in a breakaway, starting a breakaway, bridging to the breakaway, covering attacks that are trying to go to the breakaway. Bringing everything back together, welding, what we were just talking about, improving your position at an opportune time, and of course, unleashing a sprint for the end, whether it's a sprint from a breakaway or a sprint from the group. This is the part of the ride that I like to often put in a bit of an interval and an effort, but there was no room to get up there. So big group today, no room on the left, no room on the right. There was no room in the end. Just sit in and take it in, and maybe there'll be a moment in the near future to put in a little bit of an interval. So that's part of being on a group ride. You don't always get to do the work you want to do. That's okay. I could have been on the trainer. I could just sit there on the trainer and stare at my Zwift avatar with my Tron bike. Why do guys all choose the same color on the Tron bike? Of course, not everyone chooses the same color, but a lot of guys seem to choose blue. Why is everyone riding blue? Anyway, so look at the guy in front of me, my teammate. If anyone hates the Tron bike, it's kind of ironic. He hates Zwift, but he has his own Tron bike in real life. Is that really irony? Maybe I'm using the word incorrectly, because I guess it's not nearly the same thing to have a real Tron bike in life versus having a Tron bike in Zwift. When I say Tron bike, he had this lighting apparatus that he put on his bike, not this past winter, but the winter before, that the wheels were really lit up. So when they turned, his wheels looked like a solid light, and it was pretty cool. Uh, I must say so myself. Here we are getting a little bit close to George Bush Tollway, and we still have these beautiful clouds up ahead. Maybe not the most scenic landscape here. We got our strip malls, we got our hospital on the left. Interestingly enough, up here on the right is the old Richardson crit course. So it was this big open field with a round road around it, and it wasn't a particularly long road. I don't know how long this I would say it was maybe only half a mile in circumference, this road, this thing. And that's where they used to race. I never did that race. I went out and photographed it a couple of times. This would have been in the mid-aughts, like 2005, 2006. I'm not sure when racing stopped here. So you can see the line of trees to the right. That's lining the road that led to what was the crit course. Now it is all condos and, too many cars. No line. It was the nice thing about that course also was there was a great line of sight, and you could see the whole thing as it happened. Of course, Breckenridge also has a line of sight, and you can see the whole thing happening there too. But some of these courses you don't have, you can't see what's going on because your vision is blocked by other stuff. So we're getting to the last part of Renner here, hitting this yellow light, and let's see if we can move up here and make a little bit of an effort. So let's see. Whose wheel am I on? I'm on Lynn's wheel. I'm permanent. I'm glued to Lynn's wheel. Lynn's wheel is the place that I need to be on a permanent basis. Yeah, Joe was asking me if he was in the video. So, Joe, there you are, with the stripe and the white and the orange kit as I'm passing him. He's in the video. And, I've had to, sometimes this video will jam up as I'm talking to it, and it'll be pause itself, and I've got to hit play, and so the timing here is not going to be exactly correct, because I had to restart the playback, and so I'm a little off in my timing, but I'm not going to worry about that. This takes up enough time as it is. So let's see, are there guys off the front? I can't quite tell, and I can't quite remember. But yeah, I'm not in great position here. I need to be moving up, except we're hitting maybe a red light. Yeah, it looks like we're hitting a red light here. So we're going to put a pause on this sprint. A lot of the guys here will be stopping at Whole Foods for our traditional last Thursday of the month thing. So light turns green, and want to take advantage of a little bit of the speed that I had going into the light, not scrub it, go around a little bit while looking back to make sure no car was coming, and get into good position here, except I'm boxed in. Teammate John, he's off the front, got a little bit of a gap. I've got teammate Chris here just ahead of me, and I'm on his wheel. So at some point here, will I need to try to move up? Depends on what we're trying to do here. So the pace is increasing at 400 plus watts in the draft. So the wind is coming from the left to the right, except we're pretty sheltered by these fences and houses. So not a big deal with the wind right here. So didn't quite, got boxed in a little bit there, and it's time to see if I can move up a little. So this is fun, it's not really a race. Alex right there behind me, right in my draft. So getting good rest there as I'm covering and closing, so I'm having to do more work than him, which is advantageous to him. This is his teammate up here, even though he's not wearing the same kit, and oof, little bit sketchy there going around. I go left, Alex goes right. Now I'm on Alex's wheel, so we're taking turns here. And again, it was a little bit sketchy going around the guy. We weren't entirely sure if he would turn left, turn right, move, veer, and so forth. And the cars were a little bit worrying in this part of the ride. With all the traffic, we're gonna have to be careful there. Having a sprint in the area of a lot of traffic coming in and out, well, that might not be such a great idea. Whose idea was this? Anyway, so this is the end of the ride. We're pulling into Whole Foods, and some of the folks here, the riders, will perhaps imbibe an alcoholic adult beverage. And I'm going to get some kefir. Sounds good. Sounds like a good kind of recovery thing. Some probiotics. And guys from all the teams, all the groups, not on a team, we all hang out, have a good time, talk about cycling, talk about stuff. And it's a good time for all. That's part of being on the pop ride. Pop A, Pop B, sometimes Pop C. Get together, have a good time, ride our bikes, stay safe. Hope you've enjoyed it. We'll check in some other time and talk cycling. Let me know if you have any particular topics or anything you like talking about, and maybe I can accommodate. All right, guys. Later. Bye-bye.